Marketer of the Day, episode 519, LinkedIn on crack, develop authority, network powerfully, find your voice, and land speaking gigs with JD Gershbein.
Hey everyone, we're so glad that you're listening in again to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're talking right now with JD Gershbein, and JD has gained widespread recognition as a thought leader in the areas of personal branding, social networking, and social entrepreneurship. And he's here to talk to us today about how to get coaching clients on LinkedIn and all kinds of other fun stuff. So JD, glad to be talking to you.
Hey, I am delighted to be here, Robert. Thank you for having me.
Super glad to have you. And so, yeah, this platform, LinkedIn, it seems like I always forget that it's there, but it feels like over the last few months, it's picked up more and more traction as Facebook becomes more of a place to play and catch up with your friends. It seems like there's this huge group of people that have moved onto LinkedIn in order to get noticed, make connections, and all that other fun stuff. And so I'm really excited to get myself motivated to use LinkedIn more and for everyone else to hear about all of these great new insights and things that you've discovered with LinkedIn. So, I mean, let's just jump right in. I mean, how are you? What's the focus on your business these days?
Well, LinkedIn is still a huge piece of what I do. It's the platform that I emphasized early on as pivotal in driving the business conversation. So whereas all of the platforms have utility in business, as we're seeing, LinkedIn remains the de facto site for social networking purposes. If you're going to advance a business goal or a career goal, that is the business person's platform. And what I've done since I discovered LinkedIn, from the very moment I discovered it, Robert, in 2006, I saw the beauty and potential of this right away. So I literally transitioned my traditional marketing practice and hung out my shingle as a LinkedIn consultant and went out and extolled the merits of putting out a solid LinkedIn profile. And back in those days, the attention wasn't nearly as much as it is today on that profile. But I was doing the things that we're all trying to do on LinkedIn, and that is represent yourself well on this profile, connect with the right people, and start to pull conversations that you generate online into the real world. And that really has stayed the same throughout the course of my practice.
Super cool. So you're mentioning that profile is really important, and I'm looking on your profile right now, and I'm curious about what you think is important about what you have set up here, because I'm scrolling through, and by the way, everyone listening, you can just search JD Gershbein LinkedIn, and you'll find him on LinkedIn. We'll have a link in there as well. But I'm scrolling through, and I see cool things like you worked your phone number in there, you worked your social media in there. It's bullet pointed. There's a lot more text that I'm used to seeing on like your average LinkedIn profile, but also it's a lot easier to read. It's bullet pointed out. So, I mean, as far as your LinkedIn profile, which is really great, versus other LinkedIn profiles that maybe aren't so great, you think, are there like a handful of things that you think you do really well on your profile?
Well, what you're seeing there, and what anybody who would review my profile would see, is really the way that I've stylistically designed my online presence. What we saw, or what I've noticed, is the way the habits have played out is LinkedIn became the knee-jerk reference point, first point of access on business professionals. So the philosophy was, if the eyeballs and the minds behind those eyeballs were going to reference you, research you, they were truly going to LinkedIn first. So that became the first line of entry into my world. So if people were vetting me for assignments in consulting, for speaking opportunities, or even as a first degree connection, they would find out about me there. And I wanted to make sure that I had the best of the best possible version of myself, so that I could truly guide and shape perceptions about me and lead people to the conclusion that, hey, this guy does look like he walks his talk. He is a thought leader. He is asserting himself in his field. And I think there's a lot of power in one's ability to render themselves in that kind of way on an internet page. Hardest thing in the world is to convey trust online these days. But what I've always tried to do, and even in the work I do for my clients, is set them up for the types of decisions and outcomes they want.
Well, great. So you want to assert yourself as a thought leader, and so as far as the profile that you have here, I mean, how much time went into that? Was it something where like you worked on it every day, or do you keep on going back to it and updating it like a resume? Like, how much of your focus is on this profile part of things?
It's constant. It's constant vigilance, constant stewardship of my personal brand. You are looking at the result of probably thousands of man hours. What happens in the physical world goes into my social brand, and what I pull out from the online world, I live up to in the real world in front of my community. So what people see online with me is what they get. So I believe in continuous reinvention. I don't think you wake up one morning and decide that you're going to reinvent yourself or you're going to build a personal brand. Much of your brand, or what we would call a brand, is decided for us. And there are people who are going to have certain attitudes and beliefs about you. They're going to form certain impressions. Ideally, you're going to create bias or generate bias toward you. And that's what I try to do. So you're looking at something that is a very dynamic, living, breathing electronic document that I am constantly managing.
I love it. And as you're explaining that, and as I'm looking at this, I mean, I don't think I've ever, maybe I've seen it, but I don't think I've noticed it. Just that you've put videos of your media appearances on the news. You put pictures of your previous live events, and I mean, that's so simple, but it's genius because like I haven't run a live event in a few years, but I have pictures from back then, and I need to go and grab some of those pictures and put it on this profile, this resume here, just to make it stand out and all those kinds of things. And so we need to be taking LinkedIn seriously. And something that just now occurred to me is that I keep remembering that LinkedIn has the paid option, but for whatever reason, I don't really see the value in it. And I keep seeing like there's a part where they say like, oh, 5 people or 10 people have viewed your profile. We'll tell you a little bit about them, but if you pay for the premium monthly version of LinkedIn, then we'll show you exactly who they are. So about this paid version of LinkedIn, I haven't really looked into it, but is it worth it? What do you get out of it?
Well, the only person who can answer if it's truly worth it is you or anyone that's contemplating the move from the free program to a paid subscription. And what LinkedIn has done is no different than any corporate entity that wants to monetize its platform. And they are now shifting to a pay-to-play model. So those of you who are enjoying the free program, and many for over a decade, now find that they have to pay for those features or for the information that LinkedIn is withholding until you pay. So I think you come to a point, Robert, and dear listeners, where you've hit the wall and you would like to have that information on the other side that they're keeping from you, and you would be willing to pay for it. So you make the decision to pay, but once you pay, it incentivizes further use of the site, and it'll keep you rolling because now you have an ROI conversation. And if you're investing resources and time into learning the site and truly extracting value from it, ideally something's got to give. And I'm here to let everybody know that the site doesn't work itself. LinkedIn is what's called a meritocracy. Anybody know what a meritocracy is? I know everybody's raising their hands out there in podcast land, but a meritocracy is something that only is achieved through work. So that the people that we hear about who are literally changing their professional lives on LinkedIn or making great things happen in their careers, they're doing so because they are applying the time, the cognitive energy, and yes, the financial resources to get the information that LinkedIn provides to help them convert that information into something they can use to move forward in business or in their jobs.
I love it. So basically, we need to just get off the crapper, to, if you pardon my language, and jump in and start using these premium features and then take it seriously. And then we can decide if we like the results we get or not, right?
Well, absolutely. And you reach a point on LinkedIn where if you're going to pass from just idle activity or just kind of scrolling down the home page with your eyes out of focus a little bit, to really applying some mental steam to it. The people who are going to realize benefits on LinkedIn are the ones who are kind of going above and beyond, to be quite honest with you. They're not only working on the profile to make sure that that's farmed extremely well and tight and professional, but they're also deliberating on connecting with the right people. They're evaluating the mix of prospecting choices they come across within a day and or a week or a month, and they're bringing these people into their network and truly focused on having meaningful conversations. So many people connect for sport, and through the years we've built these sizable networks, and it's very difficult to measure the activity that goes on in these networks and the velocity with which information flows in them. So if you're really going to be a LinkedIn master user, as I would call it, you really need the focus. You need to apply relevance and value to what you're doing. When you do that, you'll extract relevance and value out of it, and you won't look at that annual hit on your credit card for LinkedIn as just another expense. It'll be an investment.
So along those lines of we want focus and value, but we also want to use this tool called social media, which some people see as polar opposites, right? Like we want to be focused, but then it's just full of distractions. What has helped me, and it might be just the way that my brain works, but if someone says, use Facebook or use LinkedIn for networking, there's so many different features. There's so many different things to do. And what's helped me is if someone says, well, you should be spending, 10 minutes a day on this, or you should be, following up with 5 people a day on that. So, do you have a schedule like that? Like, do you allocate time during the day or during the week? And do you say, like, I'm going to put this time into my profile, this time into posting articles, this time into videos, anything like that?
Well, I'm constantly working the platform, and sometimes that doesn't translate to eyes on the site. I produce and disseminate a lot of content across multiple channels, and invariably it's going to cross through LinkedIn or emanate from LinkedIn. So for me, I'm a little different than most people. I've been at this a long time, and I make a seamless transition between the real world and the virtual world. I know my place in the online community, and I know my place in the real world business community, and I try to merge them together as best I can on a constant basis. So I don't really watch the clock when I do this. I'll sometimes be on LinkedIn for a half hour or 45 minutes, and I wouldn't say any measurable benefit comes from it, but other than I'm kind of watching the world around me, so to speak, and picking up little bits of information that I might be able to use to either lead me to an engagement or produce a piece of content. But I'm constantly working behind the scenes to generate that material and generate a persona and a presence and work with my network and answer messages that come across. When it comes to posting, I post judiciously, I post constantly. It's not about certain times of the day anymore. It's about just making a dent in the stream and appearing on more and more people's home feeds during the course of a given day or week. So I run it a little differently. I run it like a business. I'm constantly on it, looking at it, but also maintaining my connection with the real world. I have not let reality slip away. I understand that there's this thing beyond the computer screen, and I'm there. I live there. That's where people can find me. That's where I sell myself, when I'm not present to sell myself. And the conversations that I take in the real world are designed to show people that kind of seamless movement between what they see and experience with me close up and what they're going to read about me later.
Well, that's really encouraging that you're there to do as much as possible, and I'm with you in your thinking, because and I think that this sort of teaching stopped a few years ago, but up until maybe a few years ago, people were saying, well, you have to post at this exact time of day. And that really bummed me out, because I thought, well, if I'm an hour late, then I have to wait until the next day, or I have to post on this time of day in what time zone. So you're basically saying that we need to do as much as possible. Things are so crowded these days that there's no point in waiting for 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. to do something. It's just keep on churning out the good stuff. And so do you have any tips and tricks on being motivated? Because I imagine that maybe there are some days when you're not really excited to go up there and like some posts or connect with people. So do you have a secret to always getting yourself amped up to do what you need to do every day?
Well, I love what I do. I love this stuff. And it's not a stretch for me. I don't look at it as drudgery. I view every opportunity that I'm on social media as just that, an opportunity to either build my brand in some way, build my network in some way, or make a case for myself as a conscientious provider of my services. I felt that I had to answer a call of leadership, and I did. And I've taken it upon myself to lead by example. So if anybody wants to be in my audience and they're listening to my advice or taking a page out of my playbook, I have to be quite sure that I've been there, that I've done that I've taken the bullets along the way, that I've seen the plus and the negative about certain things. And I think that's really the most important piece, is that I'm very visible. I am not hard to find on LinkedIn, and it's very easy to see the types of things I do. One thing that I can add to that is that posting on LinkedIn is not always about shamelessly and overtly promoting yourself. You want to promote your network, and you want to kind of create this feeling of community, and not just going out there, you against the world. Hey, I've got a product to sell or a service to provide, or I need this job, but more about, hey, I've got some insights. I can make some commentary that can guide people. I can show people an artistic side, a human side, and that's how you get known. And that's how you kind of slip onto the radar of people. Is you start showing up on LinkedIn, you start showing up in more networks of people, and build mutual connections, and eventually, ideally, effectively, you can transition to a conversation about sales, or about business, or about branding, or about why I'm the logical choice to work at your enterprise.
I love it. So what I'm hearing from you is that this whole LinkedIn thing is the vehicle to get you personally, JD, to get to your hopes and dreams, to get you to where you want to go. And you want to be visible, and you want it to be clear about all the great things that you do, and then you build up some of these connections, and you demonstrate value, and you help people, and then get it into that sales conversation. And something that I've really been wanting to do more for my own business and for like the social media stuff is to beef up my social skills, because I'm super jealous of people like you who the networking just comes naturally, and I can do it, but it just, I wasn't born with that. It's something that I had to learn. And I'm really jealous about some of the, maybe jealous isn't the right word, but I'll keep using it. But these people who they'll meet someone on a place like LinkedIn, and they'll get a conversation going over messaging, and it'll lead to a phone call, and they'll end up closing a client. And so do you think there are any secrets or any advice you have for people out there to beef up their social skills and to get a scenario like that in place?
Wow, that's a loaded question. And I will also, I'll preface by saying that hope can sometimes be a more effective vehicle than any strategy. Please know that there's no textbook on any of this stuff. There truly isn't. There's no turnkey system, no cookie cutter methodology. In the end, it's going to be your take on this, your definition, your DNA into this that is going to determine your outcomes. All I've ever done is done what's right for me. There are some things that I won't do or try that other people may find success with, and that's fine. The key in all of this is to find your own voice, manage your own risk, and your own tolerance for this. Do it at your own velocity. Learn incrementally, and ideally string together a couple of sessions at the computer that are really going to self-teach you. We're all self-taught. All of this stuff is in beta. Nobody's an expert. And I'm telling you that in emphatically bold line, italicized, underlined, and in yellow highlighter. Nobody is an expert. We are all learning. We are all figuring out this together. You could be the most intelligent, technological person on the site. You can navigate the site, negotiate the site, be a whiz at making connections, etc. But if the people on the other end aren't receptive to your overtures or approaches, it's what have you got? The key is that social media works when more people become savvy about it, learn it, become agile on their own terms, and that's how the conversations flow. Effective social media use, the kind that winds up as profit or fulfillment or love or whatever the outcome, that stems from effectively managing conversations.
Super cool. So it sounds like that all of this stuff, I mean, not just LinkedIn, not just social media, but, internet marketing and business in general is a process. And the rules are going to change every single month because that's how fast-paced these websites, these platforms are. And then we ourselves are going to change constantly because we pick up new skills and things like that. And as you're explaining some of this stuff, what's coming to mind is that the last few weeks, like when I go and I read different articles, like I'm sure you do too, you see all kinds of different information coming at you, is that I just keep seeing the message over and over lately that you should give yourself a break. And if you're not doing anything, if you're not taking action, well, that itself is a mistake. But if you're, taking action and you're maybe not hitting your goals or things aren't quite right yet, then don't be so harsh on yourself. That the fact that the fact that you're aware that you need to go at your own pace and figure it out on your own and do it in a unique a way that's unique to you, that's the way to go about it. And the number two guarantee way to fail is to think that there's some exact master plan and exact steps to go through. And then if things get off track, then you end up being totally disappointed. So to maybe have a better perspective and reframe our expectations there.
I'd like to take two words out of your statement. I never speak in the language of failure or disappointment. I really don't. I'm a social business psychologist, and I understand the behavioral factors at play on all this. And I've worked with thousands of people, and I've sat with thousands of people at the computer, and I've watched their eyes track across the screen, and they've communicated their innermost thoughts to me on what they feel about this stuff and how they interpret it. And the way that this is going to work, and believe me, I'm aware of the downside of all of this. I know that, we've become an insular society controlled by technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, yes, yes. But at the same time, I speak to using these sites for the greater good, for helping ourselves, for advancing humanity, for promoting causes, worthy causes. And when you go in with a positive outlook, optimism is a solid force out there in the real world today. There's just so many people not happy, not making it, not comfortable where they are, striving for better. And when you go in with that kind of vision and self-belief, you can move mountains, man. Self-confidence is our most precious commodity when it comes to ourselves, our persona, and who we are and who we want to be in the real world. And if you're taken at face value as someone who can provide value, you start to feel it. You kind of get this social bravado, as I call it, and keyboard courage, and you can talk about yourself in the kind of terms that you truly feel you are, as opposed to hiding behind some veil, some platform. So my advice to anybody is eliminate words like failure and disappointment and ineptitude and not getting it and will this work. The system is set up to favor everybody. It's a level playing field. And again, meritocracy. Victories come to those who work it. It's like anything else in life. Sports, business, music, any skill you want to master, you got to work at it.
I love it. Well, message received. And what that reminds me of is I knew someone once, I think maybe Mark Joyner or something, who said in his office he didn't use the word wait because he noticed that people were using that word too much. And it's like the Sapir Whorf thing where in the Eskimos have like 200 words for ice. And then some of these, tribes that don't go to war. They don't even have a word for war because they don't use it. So, I mean, you're so right. If there are, don't use those negative words that bring us down. Be more positive and break out of our shell. And as you said earlier, incremental progress, and it's a meritocracy. And it sounds to me like it's sort of like when you first learned to drive, you were like, oh, there's all these stupid rules in my way. But then you realize, well, everyone wants you to be able to drive, right? The government wants you to be able to drive. They want to make it easier so you can pay your taxes on your car and all those things. So the system is set up to help you succeed. LinkedIn wants you to use their platform because you use their platform. That means they succeed as well. So, I mean, you're so right. And so you mentioned that you've helped a lot of people. You've helped thousands of people with LinkedIn to get their success. You've seen their struggles. You've seen the things that they need to do to get to where they want to go. So what kind of things do you have for us today? Do you have like a course or a coaching program, or if people are stuck or curious about the possibilities with LinkedIn, how can you help people get to where they need to and want to go?
Well, that's interesting. I never started out to write the LinkedIn book. At one point, I thought I could and wanted to, but then I realized early on how quickly this site evolves and how quickly social media practices are changing. So, as I mentioned, LinkedIn is still a huge piece of what I do. There are so many people in the space now. It has really become a commoditized service and area of knowledge. And LinkedIn itself is, just awash with all sorts of tutorial programs and learning modules. And for me, the greatest value that I can impart to someone is when I'm one-on-one with them. And there are many consultants that don't like the one-offs, but it's truly worked for me as a way of opening a lot of doors that otherwise might not be there. But I'm working on online courses. It's more tailored toward thought leadership, development, and expression than actually learning how to navigate a website. I mean, if you have any problem on LinkedIn, you can pretty much Google it and or find a YouTube video that'll help you through the process. So I'm not going to go out and be redundant and talk about everything that others are talking about, Robert, because I think a lot of those have kind of crystallized into best practices, and most people know these best practices. But I will say that it is, again, individual effort, and the meta self-talk should be all positive. Look at this thing like it will work, and if you believe it will work, then it will. If you believe that the people who are sending you invitations to connect are legitimate and conscientious, then they turn out to be good. If you follow through, not wait for the other person to follow through, it could be good. So what I try to instruct people to do is to make good things happen through their own organic efforts. I've put a wealth of information out there on my website. I speak around North America about how LinkedIn has really changed the business conversation. But for me, the best engagements are people who understand what I'm trying to provide and not just wanting to learn LinkedIn because they think they should. I really talk about competitive advantage with this. And the people who work with me gain a sense that they have some kind of strategic edge in what they're doing, whether it's to become an authority figure, a thought leader, whether it's to ascend the level at their company, whether it's to sell books, sell speeches, sell consulting gigs, sell marketing programs, whatever the case may be. Whatever the transaction is, I can help them get there. And it's different for everyone.
Super duper awesome. And so it's different for everyone. We need to have the strategy component and not just you click on these tabs and links. So if people are frothing at the mouth at this point, or maybe one notch less than that, but they're super curious about LinkedIn, they're excited about the possibilities. They say, I could go about it myself, but it might take me a year, and by then the rules will change. So it'll help for me to get on this fast track to get this competitive advantage that you're mentioning. So are there any websites or ways that people can contact you, reach out to you in order to figure out or to get your book or to get something from you for this?
Well, of course there is. I would. Are you going to put any information on the show notes? Otherwise, I'm certainly happy to let people know that they can always find me on LinkedIn. They can always connect with me on my website. My company is Owlish Communications. The bird, the owl, Owlish, Owlish, communications.com. That is the marketing arm of my company, the educational platform of my company. You can also find me by name on my speaker website, which is jdgershbein.com. So I work with individuals and companies who really are opportunity oriented. I don't have a target market, folks. I work with people who just want to learn how to get it. They want to learn how to compete on this site, and they want to learn how to convert their online activities into real world results.
I love it. So to answer your question, yes, we'll have a link to this in the show notes, but just to make sure if people are listening to this while they're walking, driving, exercising, whatever, just to recap, that website is owlishcommunications.com. The website as well is JD Gershbein, and to spell that out really quick, that's JDGERSHBEIN. And then, of course, go to LinkedIn and search JD Gershbein. If you find the handsome guy with the Seth Godin looking glasses, then you found the right person. And so yeah, make sure to reach out to JD and let him know what you're doing with LinkedIn, or let him know if you have any questions or any struggles, or if there are things that you think he can help you out with in order to get to where you need to go. Look him up on LinkedIn, jdgershbein.com, owlishcommunications.com. Go there. We'll see you there. You'll be glad you did. As we close things up here, JD, is there any last thoughts or words you'd like to add?
You know, I always tell people that if there's a desired outcome, there's a way to get it. And in business today, there's so much complacency, there's so much worry. If you're an entrepreneur, you obviously need to attract attention to your enterprise, find the right people. There's just so much stress, much of it self-imposed. And I think the key piece here, and the easier said than done piece, is to relax and understand that social media effort translates into results. It is hard work. The input does equal the output, and the greater the velocity, the greater the strength, the greater the force you apply on the system, the greater the acceleration will be to drive a result. So everything that I've ever achieved in my social business, so to speak, has been a result of my own efforts and not giving up and applying positive connotations, positive meta-speak to what I talk and think about. And good things start to happen. And when one good thing happens, you're going to try to make the next good thing happen. And so on and so on and snow on. And when it starts to snowball, well, Robert and dear listeners, it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. The upward spiral. Well, all right then. So everyone out there, if you're not using LinkedIn, use it. If you are using it, use it better. JD Gershbein is the guy to get you to figure that out, and we'll see you there. So thank you. Thanks for listening to today's program. Start from the beginning or view past episodes at marketeroftheday.com/episodes.